Anyway, speaking of which, Pokemon has escalated to very dangerous levels now. There's actually someone who has been killed over Pokemon cards. Yeah, so it has happened. It has finally escalated to the point of taking someone's life or so over Pokemon cards. And Penguin Zero has a video for it. So I'm like, I can't believe, well, it was just a matter of time for this to escalate to the point of taking someone's life over a plastic of a cardboard box of a picture, basically. This is kind of sad, I'm not gonna lie.
I told you, it's only getting worse, man. Yesterday I made that video going over the silly, goofy fight over Pokemon cards at a restock, which, again, Pokemon restocks are basically the purge at this point. You're not actually even going there for product. You're going there to either get your teeth punched out or your skull caved in. It's just become a place where it's a PvP-enabled zone, and people throw hands and try and get as much Pokemon product as they can, just gluttonously consuming it to try and turn around and sell it for a profit. And in the video I made on that yesterday, I said that it's only a matter of time before someone gets killed over it. There's already been a shooting over Pokemon cards, and I'm sure there will be a murder around the corner. And it turns out that did already happen. I just learned about a case in Chile where a 20-year-old woman who is a Pokemon vendor was kidnapped and killed by a couple looking to rob her of her Pokemon cards. So they kidnapped her and murdered her in her apartment and stole her Pokemon cards. Now, there's no English outlets reporting on this case as of right now, so all of the information I'm getting comes from Chilean sources directly, which I have to translate. And on YouTube, they only have auto dubbing available, which I find to be pretty unreliable. I don't think it's entirely accurate, but I've checked some people in Chile that are relaying the information as well that corroborate a lot of what the auto dubbing is saying. So the story is true based on all the information here. Just certain elements of it might be a bit incorrect, like the value of the Pokemon cards they stole. It's reported that this couple robbed and murdered this woman for 3,000 pesos worth of Pokemon cards, which is not expensive. That's not a huge value there. They didn't get the fucking One Piece or anything. They basically got like 2 hamburgers worth of Pokemon cards. So like I feel like maybe that number.
But isn't it like 3,000 pesos quite a lot or so in Chile though? Like I don't know the estimated value. I know I have someone from Chile in my audience, as they can probably tell me. And nothing will probably be done about this. Well, they already got arrested.
Is incorrectly translated, or maybe they truly did do all of this over that little amount. Like the Pokemon card hysteria is completely out of control, so it's possible it really was over just that little amount. But no matter how expensive the Pokemon cards were, it doesn't justify murdering someone for them. That is a vile, evil action.
That is very true.
And they have been taken into custody. They have been arrested. They are being charged with robbery and robbery with homicide. So fingers crossed they get maximum punishment here.
Another important part of this investigation is precisely to reveal the amount of Pokemon cards that were ultimately stolen from the victim. We are talking about Camila Dominic and Olortig Quispe, as Florencia was telling you, a young woman who is only 20 years old, and this incident is being investigated as a robbery with homicide.
That's just sad, I ain't gonna lie.
And this is what the family is asking for. The body of this 20-year-old woman has not yet been found, but all the evidence that the prosecution has at this time leads them to a single answer, that a homicide occurred inside the apartment of one of the defendants.
Her name was Dominic Camila Olortigue Quispe, and she was reported missing for quite some time. Investigators believe that she was murdered in one of their apartments, this Chilean couple. They, based on some of the other reports that I read, as well as what I was watching from broadcasts, they found surveillance footage that shows them taking her into an apartment, and she never leaves.
Unfortunately, in addition, the 2 defendants, 2 people, a man and a woman under 30 years old, are also being held in preventative detention. Now, what happened? This young woman was selling Pokemon cards in a community of young people who exchanged these cards. She was moving around
trade
with her
show.
card, where she had an approximate value of cards worth around 3,000 pesos. This would be the method of procedure.
What?
Why? The reason why the defendant would
So they kidnapped and killed her to steal 3,000 pesos worth of Pokemon cards. What the fuck?
Let me see. I need to find out real quick. Hold on. It's not considered a lot in Chile. It is a small amount, roughly equivalent to 3 to 4, based on the well, I don't care about that. It's sufficient for minor every day. The key uses for that is a single large of empanada, or a sandwich from a food truck, or a couple of metro or bus trips in Santiago. It's better to understood as pocket money for a small convenience rather than a significant sum of daily expenses. I feel like it has to be way more in order for you to do 3,000 in total. Like it can't just be 3,000, right? It can't just be 3,000. There's just no way it's 3,000. It has to be more. It has to be way more. Cause like if it's supposed to be pocket change, right? Equivalent to pocket change, it's like there's no way that like they just robbed her, basically murdered her and robbed her for 3,000 pesos.
This was the first report I watched on it that gave the general overview of everything that unfolded. It was a couple. They had got Dominic Camilla to their apartment, and she never left. They have security camera footage of her going in, and then they only ever have footage of the perpetrators leaving. And there's a lot of other things that they found on the security camera footage. But in this report, they said that the value of the cards they stole was 3,000 pesos, which again, that's literally buying like a handful of gummy worms. That's not a lot at all. But in the other report I was watching, they say 3 million pesos, which is quite a bit more.
3 million?
Not that it changes anything here. Having someone's life taken over Pokemon cards is completely unacceptable, and this couple should 1000% never see the light of day again. They should be locked in a hole for the rest of their lives. This is a genuinely evil action that is unforgivable. But I just wanted to show that since there aren't any English sources that are reporting on this as of this moment, I have to rely on translations, and they're not entirely accurate. So the story does get a little muddy, so if there's any things that I'm messing up, I apologize, but this is a very serious story, and one that I just can't help but yap about, man. The state of the Pokemon hobby couldn't be worse.
Robbery, because the victim's belongings were allegedly stolen. A cart that she usually used to move her folders which contain these Pokemon cards that are valued at close to 3 million pesos. And finally, that is what also leads the prosecution to part of the evidence used by the prosecution to indicate that a robbery occurred here, and that they later attempted to, or ultimately killed, this 20-year-old woman. We must review the words of the prosecution that refer to this case.
I'd be curious to see if I can understand it. I don't think I will, though, but I'd be curious to see if I would understand it.
Sendum, the victim is seen entering the apartment with the defendant, and only the defendant is seen leaving on several occasions. And the defendant must have entered with the defendant, and always taking the victim's cart, where she had all her letters, which were the ones with the greatest value.
The auto-dubbing is just really falling apart. It's sucking major ass here. But from what I can piece together with this broadcast as well as what I've read, is that on the security camera footage, they know that Dominic Camilla was in the apartment. She went into that apartment. And they also know through the security camera footage she never left. But the couple did on numerous occasions and had even left with Milla's belongings. And what she said there with letters that had the most value, I think they were talking about the cards. They left with her Pokemon cards, the greatest value Pokemon cards, and they have evidence of that through this footage.
And there are also videos where the defendant is seen entering the supermarket to buy these garbage bags and packing tape. According to the prosecution, these security cameras are key to the investigation, and they are continuing the investigation based on these records, which show the defendant's constant comings and goings from an apartment on Monquita Street in the Santiago commune, where the victim was allegedly taken, and from which apartment the victim never left. These records are important because the body of this young woman, who is only 20 years old, Camila Dominic, has still not been found.
They're also alleging that through the security camera footage, they saw that this couple was getting trash bags and tape and bringing it into the apartment and just very suspicious shit like that. That is extremely shady. So they haven't found her body. They are still investigating and doing all they can to locate that, but they are treating this as robbery with homicide. That's what they are pursuing here. They have enough evidence to support that, it seems, and it is just fucking sickening, man. I know I've made so much content on it recently. I just can't help blabber about it. I'm obviously very passionate about TCGs. I have an entire fucking channel dedicated to it.
Oh, you do?
So seeing what's happened to not just Pokemon, but just TCGs across the board really sucks. And in Pokemon in particular, it is...
For Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been pretty alright, to be frankly honest. You really can't flip a profit or so in Yu-Gi-Oh! You have to basically do that in the other TCGs. Yu-Gi-Oh! It will not work for Yu-Gi-Oh!
Is really in the shitter. It is just terrifying. People being beaten to a fucking pulp. People being shot over Pokemon cards. And now, even people having their lives taken over Pokemon cards. And again, there's other examples of scalpers going crazy and all, like, you know, trying to get their hands on the same stuff to try and flip for like a fucking $5 profit over the years. But for Pokemon in particular, it has become just deplorable. Like, Team Rocket doesn't beat up Ash Ketchum or shoot Pokemon trainers to get their hands on the Pokemon. And they certainly don't murder people over it. But the fucking Chilean Jesse...
When you find a way or so to make Team Rocket look actually good, you know you fucked up something.
And James here certainly do. It's scary, and it's only getting worse. Like I said, it has spiraled totally out of control now. It's heartbreaking hearing about what happened to this woman in Chile. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about it a bit. That's really it. See ya.
Okay, let me see. It's called Mega Noticias. I want to see if I can understand it to some degree. Let me see. Mega Noticias. Holy Toledo's, man. They sure upload quite a lot, actually. Pokemon. Here it is. Let me see.
Durante la jornada de formalización de cargos por los dos imputados por la desaparición de Dominique Olortegui. Todavía no se sabe nada de esta joven desaparecida el 7 de marzo. Hay dos personas.
The 7th of March she disappeared, is what he's saying. So they have no clue where she's at since her disappearance on March 7th.
Personas que fueron formalizadas por el delito de robo con homicidio. ¿Qué es lo que se sabe hasta ahora? Que Dominique habría ingresado a un departamento en el centro de Santiago y nunca más se supo de ella.
The central area of Santiago, which is, I assume the Santiago is the city itself, is that she went into an apartment or so and she never came out.
¿Qué es lo que pasó con los únicos dos imputados en esta causa de esta joven que vendía cartas Pokémon y nunca más se supo de ella? Lo vemos a continuación.
¡Que paguen! Lo que comenzó como una presunta desgracia terminó dando un vuelco brutal. Dominique Camila Olortegui Quispe, de solo 20 años, desapareció el 2
Damn, she was literally 20 years old when she disappeared.
de marzo.
So she disappeared on March 2nd, and then they found out that she hasn't came out of that specific, like, you know, I guess they were aware of her on March 3rd of her disappearance. That's basically how it is.
Dedicada a la venta de cartas Pokémon, salió rumbo a una reunión, pero nunca más volvió.
Llegué al departamento, le dije que vengo a ver a mi hija, no me dejaron subirla porque no contestaba el citófono ni la puerta. Y ahí es cuando yo dije, me preocupé si a mi hija
That's
no
her mom or so. She went to go check to her daughter or so. It wouldn't open the door. Her phone wouldn't answer, so she got really worried.
le gustan las fiestas, no sale. Y al día siguiente
She doesn't like parties or anything like that, so she doesn't really go out or none of that stuff.
voy a hacer la denuncia a Carabineros de la 4ª comisaría.
Una incertidumbre que se extendió por semanas hasta el miércoles 22 de abril, cuando la Policía de Investigaciones confirmó la detención
April 22nd, when they have confirmed her, so that basically they found out who was the one that did it, basically.
de 2 personas.
It was 2 people.
Hoy, la verdad asomó en su forma más cruda. La Fiscalía formalizó por robo con homicidio a Bastián Carvajal como presunto autor, mientras que Ruth Navarro quedó imputada como encubridora.
Pido que por favor la justicia llegue con toda la fuerza para ellos dos. Así como en la vida hay buenos y malos, pero ellos son culpables. Él es culpable, la otra y de igual manera.
Vamos a...
You know, it's so funny or so how they're saying like it's their fault, you should like give them like high sentences. Like basically they're saying like it's their fault, they're the ones who did it or so and all that stuff. But then when you hear the Western side or so, they're like the ones that like, oh no, stop, don't, you know, they're trying to get sympathy or so for a lot of the, like, you know, for a lot of things in general when I witness or so. But then like on the Hispanic side, it's like, no, fuck that, man, they fucking did it, fucking punish the shit out of them, you know. I don't know, dude. It's just so weird to hear like Western society sometimes.
A seguir luchando para que, digamos, los culpables que le hicieron daño a Camila paguen realmente con toda la fuerza y el rigor de la ley.
Para la Fiscalía, las cámaras serían la pieza clave. Los registros mostrarían...
The camera or so is basically the #1 key or so that basically exposed that they were the ones that did it.
A la joven ingresar al edificio, pero jamás salir. Sí aparecen ellos varias veces y empujando carros. En uno de ellos habría sido trasladado el...
They were going in and out of the apartment, I think, or so, and they were pushing carts from in and out or so. And they were the ones that were going in, like, these two specifically were coming out of the apartment in and out or so, and they were pushing carts apparently. I guess they must have put the body in there, or they must have cut up the body parts or so, or something like that. I'm just taking a guess at that part at least.
El cuerpo de la joven.
Se ve salir solamente al imputado en varias oportunidades y se ve entrar al imputado con la imputada. Y siempre llevando el carrito de la víctima donde ella tenía todas sus cartas, que eran las que tenían el mayor valor.
Basically, they were taking the victim's car and they were going in and out or so, and that's where they had all. That's where the person that died or so had all their Pokemon cards in there, and they had all the high value cards in there.
Y aunque la defensa de Ruth intentó instalar que actuó bajo una dinámica de violencia ejercida por su pareja, por ahora no desvirtuó los antecedentes levantados por Fiscalía.
Tienen una hija en común, efectivamente, ella lo tiene demandado por pensión alimenticia, es decir, existen ciertos antecedentes de cierta violencia, incluso fueron expuestos también por el Ministerio Público respecto de madres de otros hijos que también tenían problemas de violencia.
Una colección evaluada en cerca de 6 millones de pesos.
Holy shit, fucking 6 million pesos? God damn, that's so it's not 3 million, it's not 3,000, it's 6 million pesos in total. So what's that equivalent to the USD? Not Mexican pesos. There you go. That's the pricing. about $7,000 USD or so, from Chilean pesos. Jesus fucking Christ, that's a lot of money, not gonna lie.
Y que según la investigación pudo ser el móvil del crimen. También es clave el uso posterior del teléfono de Dominique. Chats a los que accedimos mostrarían cómo, ya fallecida la víctima, sus cartas seguían siendo ofrecidas desde sus propias redes e incluso usando su teléfono celular.
Amiga, si la tienes me avisas y a cuánto.
La estás buscando. Para luego. Tengo un amigo que colecciona de esos.
¿Y a cuánto lo tendrá?
Ni idea. ¿Lo quieres para ti?
Los amigos de la víctima reconocieron algunas cartas que se encontraron en poder del imputado en su domicilio y reconocieron esas cartas como de propiedad de la víctima.
Wait, can I hear this part again? Hold on.
Amigos de la víctima reconocieron algunas cartas que se encontraron en poder del imputado en su domicilio.
Apparently friends of the victim found some of the cards. I don't know what that word is specifically. Hold on. Can I change this to English by any chance?
Possession of the defendant at his...
Oh, that's not what I wanted. Put that in Spanish. Subtitles, auto-translate. I don't think it's gonna do it very well, but I'm gonna give it a try though.
Esas cartas como de propiedad de la víctima. Y además
Okay, so it belonged to the victim or so. So I guess one of the friends or so noticed that the card specifically actually belonged to the actual original owner.
acompañaron información de que estas cartas fueron ofrecidas por el imputado días después del fallecimiento de la víctima, fueron ofrecidas a través de redes sociales.
Okay, so basically they were trying to, I guess they were trying to sell the cards in general, and then the person who noticed them or so noticed immediately that those cards belonged to the actual person who actually died or so, or basically disappeared, and that's how...
El tribunal decretó prisión preventiva para ambos imputados y fijó 120 días de investigación. Un caso que comenzó como una desaparición y que hoy la justicia investiga como un homicidio.
Yeah, that's kind of like generally it or so. At least like I might have probably got some things very wrong, but it's like very little that I got it wrong or so. But a lot of things, probably that last part I might have gotten a little bit incorrect or so. People in the comment section can let me know about it. But overall, that's basically is what it is. That is the whole shtick or so on this whole Pokemon fiasco of what's happening or so. Basically, her life was taken away because she had about like worth $7,000 in Pokemon cards, and they basically, took her life away and took the cards, and then they were trying to sell it. And they knew exactly, a friend of the victim knew exactly those cards or so, and found out that those were not, kind of good eye, to be frankly honest, on the friend noticing that the card was originally someone else's, so... But yeah, overall, that's basically it. That's all I know specifically about this. Hopefully I got everything correct. There were some words or so I couldn't understand specifically, but yeah, that's generally it though. But yeah, anyways, that's the end of the video. And honestly, it has gotten that bad or so where we are taking people's lives over fucking a cardboard, the cutout of a fucking cardboard of a drawing on it. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, por muchachita. Ay, ay, ay. Nombre. That's pretty bad, especially for a 20-year-old who was just selling, cards and everything like that. So, yeah. Anyways, peace.